Love is like a trailer park, ugly but functional. The rent is cheap enough. I lost my voice a couple weeks ago. I had pneumonia. That's okay. Unfortunately for you, I am in the mood to do something creative. So, here I am. There's a lot of love lost every day. Mine's been no different, though I find some or lots every day or most days. That doesn't lessen the loss, or at least sometimes it feels that way. September 11th, 2016. You never write me back in the cold and sober, howling winds of daylight, where you're in danger of being seen. You never write me back your form. You never write me back when your form cannot bleed into the formless, rooting in, burrowed deep into the ground, wrapping hold of me tight, feeling rather than seeing, much unlike this stark and starchy daylight living. You only write when we're both tasting death by the precarious and curious handful, trading each other in equal parts, in flesh, in ceremony, in spirit. You know me like nobody else, and yet you're afraid of me seeing you. You're afraid of the quiet, the bleak, the haze of normality and arbitration in every step on the cement where our secret names were writ the night before. You're afraid and you worry that I'm not. I'm terrified, but only slightly more than being terrified without you. Unreciprocated in that moment. I don't remember who this one was for. But maybe it's better to be burnt. A quick prayer then. Take in those long gulps, those long, patient breaths, the shuddering, creaking reminders, flowing through empty halls, carrying with it a salted, stinging brine called retribution. Exaltation through exhalation. A hush, a loosening of eyelids tightly shut, running blood piping hot through cooler humors once stung by memory. We are a mercy to ourselves, forgetful fools, benign in the burning fiefdoms of power and glory forever and ever. Amen. Shh. Much as a candle goes out in the cold, wick saved for longer, colder nights. 2016 was one of the hardest, most wintry years that I don't really remember. I'm struggling to piece it all back together, but I've always had this bad habit of leaving things behind, except people. I can't seem to put people down, especially the thorned ones. I want to feel helpful, be better. But how can you be better to others if you aren't better to yourself? Where does your duty to one another end? Does it end? Or does it just fall short? It's paradoxical to me, and has been painted quite a few shades of black and white for my benefit over the years, but I just can't stop seeing it in grays. I guess if it was meant to be simple, I would have solved it by now. Like Zen koans or any other mental crucible, we are made pure selves through a lifelong temperance. But does that make our loyalty to ourselves more valuable than the duty we have to lift one another up? I suppose there's a balance to be metered, A house can't stand without a good foundation, but a foundation can't be a house no matter how perfect. The same goes for castles. The Masons must have known something about this, depending how much tinfoil you want to wear. Read this sentence. 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 And if you read it enough times, the words lose their meaning. It just becomes you reading yourself, hammering out the sideways and the obstructions until you're just left with the it, the self, you, in the present. The culmination of billions of years, a conduit of consciousness, piloting a biological mech, existing as ghost impulses organized in complex stacks, knots, and instructions. But you are so much more than the sum of your parts. You exist both within the churning protein-laden confines of this body and outside of it. And at such a small level, you may as well be dropping into another universe of interactions. And the why of all ceases to matter, because right now it just is, and one day it might not. Breathtaking. How precious right now is for all its insignificance. It is all the importance we will ever truly know as the building blocks for what we have known, and maybe for what we will know. But this is as close to real as it gets. I'm glad I get to share it with you, even if it's a bit bruised or bruising sometimes. A relevant piece of now distant history. Why do you do this to yourself? A question to which my reply has and always will be anaphylaxis. Valuable both as a question and answer. I think so. Anyways. September 4th, 2016. Cold cliffs, cold crest, on oceans deeper than the storm, begging mercies on a fevered brow, desperate to get warm, clinging to the rocks like moss where shallow lichen grows, thin by hunger and stiff by pain, stacking markers row by row. Pale as you, chameleon, searching onwards through the howl, sleepless circles sharpen your eyes and hunger makes the owl. We stamped out the steel 100 times before we called it home. Between the sex, blood, and the drink, the only things we've ever known, pass through a million pale hands. Desperate for the quiet life, trading freedom for a dreamless sleep, sold as a husband or a wife or a peaceless pact, you see. And as much as you can take, you'll kill me with a loving stare much sooner than a wooden stake. As many pieces as we give out, twice as many will grow back. So many arms to act as puppeteers, so many eyes to fade to black. But one lesson engraved in flesh, cooled under leaden rains, half fixed by 100 hands, will make you less than whole again. When things don't fit, we try to fit them anyways, don't we? My work has a lot of amputation and sacrificial themes woven into them. My works, rather. Even if I'm sketching something, it will often start with a single shape or concept and then The person or the archetype folds, snaps, is sawed, or bolted around it. Often wearing a mask on strings or featured in an expression of drugged bliss. Or I'll start with the eyes, or an eye anyway, one eye. The rest builds up the same. I think this has more to do with my understanding of how to make organic shapes and use the medium properly than it does anything else about how I perceive the world. It's all very abstract to me, pinned together with meaningful or significant moments of feeling rather than knowing. I know enough to know that I'm fucking clueless, that I know nothing. That I know nothing. This is the closest period of my life that I came to killing myself. Shortly after this letter was written, a letter to Captain Hook. There's more to life than running away. Sometimes you have to let the good come to you. Like a fluid, let life fill you up instead of exhausting yourself in the chase of greener grass and beautiful men. Oliver, of all people, taught me that. A man with an unscratchable itch of personal suffering. A man who's killed at least a dozen people in his line of work and turned away from God completely. He told me this. Take your girl out for dinner, even if you have food at home, even if times are tough and you're not sure when more work will come in. You have to remind yourself that life can be good. I have to ask, though, why Pennsylvania? Well, my dad, I think, thinks that I'm going to kill myself here. What are you doing tonight? Let me buy you dinner. I am worried that the despair is creeping in. The hotel is doing the best it reasonably can. When in doubt, crank up the drip. Full moon anxiousness. Self-doubt regarding writing's inability to memorize anything. I seriously miss you. Nothing. 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 And I certainly felt like nothing that night. I hope you found those greener pastures, Captain Hook. I hope even more that they found you and you wake up someday in a state of awe with the scent of lush hills blowing in cooling gales, rolling under a fair and just sun. Just perfect. Or at least perfect enough for me. When death finds me, I should hope that it is only once, or at least as few times as possible. In my wake, I leave a legacy of multicolored actions, a mosaic as imperfect as I have been. My measure is not in my greatness, nor is it my morality, but instead the reckless pursuits of empathy, most often built in spite of myself, last minute and at great expense. Though I'm not sure how close to that version of myself I am today. 4 years or so on. I guess it's 7 years now. There are times I find him, am inspired by him, pity him. But today he is not real. Or at least, less real than me. I'd like to focus on that now. Thanks for listening.